All right, what is up, everyone? My name is Vin Platterodi. I work for the Little Falls Public School District. I teach 6th, 7th, 8th grade math, financial literacy, and I teach a class on sports statistics and analytics. And I also worked at the ADP Center during my undergrad at Montclair State University. It was a wonderful place to work, and it's a wonderful place to learn as well. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to navigate the current remote learning climate and also managing the aftermath. What happens after June and into the summer and even come the fall when we return. So the first thing that we're going to discuss is the current best practices. Now, this is not like a law or anything like that. These are just things that I find to be very helpful in my teaching with the remote learning, and hopefully you learn something of value here. I will get into some online resources at the very end of this, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But some things that I find to be very helpful with the remote learning is to engage yourself normally and be as efficient as possible. And I think the efficiency is going to come a little bit more when we talk about consistency over here to the right, which we'll get into. But just try and be as normal as possible. When you record your lessons, when you host your lessons live, even on your posts, just be yourself. And that's going to be invaluable for your students, is to try and keep as much of a sense of normalcy as possible. Figure out what works best for you is extremely important. I wish there was a one-size-fits-all to teaching, but as we've learned, that there isn't. Everyone learns differently, everyone teaches differently, and you have to figure out what's going to work best for you and your class. The way that I'm going to be teaching for my 8th graders is going to be much different than the way that I handle my 6th graders. So it's always a constant adjustment and kind of figuring out what's going to work best for you and what's going to work best for your situation. And the last two bullet points are extremely, extremely important. That is to be flexible, considering the circumstance, and to be understanding. Flexible in terms of how you're going to carry your class. These are very uncharted territory for most people. And you're going to have to do things that you normally wouldn't. You're going to have to be okay with things that you normally wouldn't, and be a little bit more understanding than normal. That was a big struggle for me early in the get-go, is when a student would not be signing on during our regular class time. I would just be kind of chalking it up to, well, maybe they're playing video games or watching Netflix or, just sleeping. And I had to really think about, well, maybe they all are also taking care of a younger sibling or an older relative during, a period where parents might be working, mom might be working 2 jobs, or might be on the front lines as a nurse or working at a grocery store. Everyone's dealing with something going on currently. So we have to be very understanding that our students are not only dealing with the stress of school, but the stress of what's going on at home as well. Next, I want to get into the consistency part. Create and follow a routine that's going to work for you and going to work for your students. This, to me, has been the biggest key for me with remote learning and remote teaching. My district was very organized and prepared for this. We are working on a half-day schedule. We have been since the start. We prepared where every single student knew before we left that this is how it was going to go, that we would follow a schedule. So if you have a first period teacher, let's say you have first period language arts, during remote learning, you check in during a specific time, and then you would follow your schedule normally and go to period 2, 3, 4, all the way up to period 9. This has been fantastic. And even if your school's not working with like a half-day schedule or full-day schedule, you should create your own schedule for your students. So tell them that we're going to be meeting for language arts between 11 and 11:45 every single day. And you can post your assignments exactly at 11. You can have office hours between 1 and 2 if you'd like to do it that way. If you teach multiple subjects, you can break it up so where you're doing language arts during this time and doing science during another time. Create your own schedule for your students, so this way they have something that they can follow, and so you also have something that you can follow. It's going to make both parties extremely, extremely helpful. And also the parents too can really rely on having their kids working at a certain time or doing something at a certain time. So be consistent with your time. Be consistent with your resources as well. We've gotten very, very lucky where a lot of websites have opened up their resources for free. However, there are a ton of resources out there. I'm getting emails from coworkers all the time. hey, can you check this out? Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, your students could work on that. And a lot of times they're fantastic. However, they are very similar. And when I assign my students work, I try to assign it from the same few websites. So this way they're familiar with the login process. They're familiar with how to navigate the website. They're familiar with how to turn in the assignments. I try not to overwhelm myself and try not to overwhelm them with utilizing, 10, 15 different math websites. It's just going to be crazy for me to keep up with and crazy for the students to have to keep up with as well. So figure out what resources you like, figure out which ones are going to be useful to you, have a couple of them, and then those are the ones that you should be using consistently. And the last one is have some consistent norms. My students know that every single day at 9:21, I think it is, that I'm going to post something on our Google Classroom, and they have to check it, and then they're going to have an assignment. They're going to have something to do. It could be to watch me go over how to do a different concept. It could be to work on a couple questions on that concept. But they know that every single day from my class, there's going to be something there for them to do. And at the end of the week, that's when it's due. So let's say on Tuesday, they have some kind of family emergency or they're not feeling well. They don't have to get it done that Tuesday. Now, I would say about 90% of my students do it on that day that I assign it just to get it over with. But I do give that flexibility, and they know that by Friday, 5 p.m., that all the assignments have to be in. So we've established these classroom norms. I was very lucky enough to create a hybrid class in September where my students are utilizing online resources throughout the year. And then when we moved to remote learning, we kept the same types of norms and kept the same resources. So my situation is different. Everyone is dealing with a very different situation. So you have to figure out how you're going to handle the time, the resources, and what norms you want to establish in your virtual learning classroom. But my best advice is to be consistent, and you'll find a lot of success by being consistent. And this is going to make you work, going back here, it is going to make you work more efficiently, is by keeping the consistency with the time and the resources in your classroom norms. Your students know what to expect, they know when to expect it, and you've established a routine for them.